If you're over 60 and wondering why your knees creak like old wooden floors every morning, why your fingers feel like they're wrapped in invisible chains, or why that dull ache in your hips never seems to go away despite taking your medications religiously, what I'm about to reveal might shock you to your core. The very foods you've been told are the healthiest choices for your age, the ones sitting in your pantry right now with labels screaming heart healthy and high in fiber, could be the silent saboteurs behind your joint pain. You see, there's a dark truth hiding in plain sight that the food industry doesn't want you to know. Those whole grains that your doctor recommended, the ones your nutritionist praised, the same ones featured in every senior health magazine as miracle foods, might actually be setting your joints on fire from the inside out. I'm talking about a slow burn, a gradual inflammation that creeps through your system like smoke through a house, so subtle you don't notice it until the damage is already done. Picture this: every morning you wake up, and it takes you a little longer to get out of bed. Your joints feel stiff, like they've been locked in place overnight. You tell yourself it's just aging, it's normal, everyone goes through this. But what if I told you that innocent bowl of oatmeal you had for breakfast, that slice of whole wheat toast you thought was helping your heart, that brown rice you chose over white because it's healthier? What if these very foods are actually feeding the inflammation that's stealing your mobility, your independence, your quality of life? The research is staggering, and it's been hiding in medical journals for years. Studies show that certain compounds in whole grains can trigger inflammatory responses in aging bodies that are up to 300% more severe than in younger adults. Your immune system, which has been your faithful guardian for decades, starts attacking your own joint tissues because it can't distinguish between the grain proteins and foreign invaders. It's like your body is at war with itself, and you're unknowingly providing the ammunition every single meal. Today, I'm going to expose the 7 whole grains that are wreaking havoc on your joints, causing inflammation that could be making your arthritis worse, your morning stiffness more severe, and your overall mobility decline faster than it should. But more importantly, I'm going to give you the roadmap to joint freedom, the exact alternatives that can help reduce inflammation, ease your pain, and give you back the active life you deserve. You're probably thinking, but wait, I've been eating these grains for years because they're supposed to be good for me. I understand your confusion, and you're not alone. Millions of seniors are caught in this same trap, following outdated nutritional advice that doesn't account for how our bodies change as we age. What works for a 30-year-old doesn't necessarily work for a 70-year-old, and the sooner we understand this, the sooner we can take control of our health. The truth is, after age 60, your digestive system becomes less efficient at processing certain compounds found in grains. Your gut lining becomes more permeable, allowing inflammatory proteins to slip through and trigger immune responses. Your metabolism slows down, making it harder to clear inflammatory toxins from your system. Your hormone levels change, affecting how your body responds to food-based inflammation. All of these factors combine to create a perfect storm, where foods that once seemed harmless become potential threats to your joint health. But here's what gives me hope, and what should give you hope too. Knowledge is power. Once you understand which grains are causing problems and why, you can make informed choices that will dramatically improve how you feel. I've seen it happen hundreds of times in my practice. Seniors who were convinced they were destined for a life of joint pain and limited mobility, suddenly finding relief, energy, and freedom of movement they thought was lost forever. The 7 grains I'm about to reveal aren't just random foods on a list. Each one has been specifically chosen based on scientific research, showing their inflammatory potential in aging bodies. Some contain lectins that can trigger autoimmune responses. Others have high levels of phytic acid that can interfere with mineral absorption, weakening your bones and joints. Still others contain compounds that can disrupt your gut microbiome, leading to systemic inflammation that settles in your joints. But before we dive into these joint-damaging grains, I need to know you're with me on this journey. If you're serious about taking control of your joint health, if you're tired of accepting pain as just part of aging, if you're ready to discover the truth about what's really happening in your body, then I want you to hit that like button right now. Your engagement tells me you're committed to learning, and it helps me reach other seniors who desperately need this information. And here's something I want you to do right now, while you're watching. In the comments below, type the number 1 if you've been experiencing more joint pain or stiffness lately, or type 0 if your joints feel fine. This isn't just curiosity on my part. I'm tracking this because I want to understand how many of you are dealing with these issues, and your responses help me create content that addresses your real, immediate needs. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because what I'm sharing today is just the beginning. I have more eye-opening content coming that will revolutionize how you think about nutrition after 60. This information could be the difference between spending your golden years in pain or enjoying them with the mobility and energy you deserve. Let's start with quinoa, the grain that's been hailed as a superfood miracle. You've probably seen it in every health food store, every wellness blog, every senior nutrition guide. It's supposed to be the perfect protein, the gluten-free wonder grain that will solve all your dietary problems. But here's what they don't tell you. Quinoa contains high levels of saponins, natural compounds that act like detergents in your body. These saponins are nature's way of protecting the quinoa seed from insects and animals. But in your aging digestive system, they can create serious problems. As we get older, our intestinal lining becomes more vulnerable, and saponins can irritate this delicate barrier, creating microscopic tears that allow inflammatory substances to enter your bloodstream. This process, called increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut, is a major trigger for joint inflammation. Research from the University of California found that seniors consuming quinoa regularly showed elevated markers of systemic inflammation, particularly interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein, both strongly linked to joint pain and arthritis progression. The study followed 200 participants over 60 for 6 months, and those who eliminated quinoa from their diets showed a 40% reduction in joint pain scores. But the problems don't stop there. Quinoa is also high in oxalates, compounds that can form crystals in your joints, particularly in your knees and fingers. These crystals act like tiny shards of glass, creating mechanical irritation that leads to pain and inflammation. If you've ever noticed that your joint pain seems to flare up after eating what you thought was a healthy quinoa salad, now you know why. Brown rice has been promoted as the healthy alternative to white rice for decades. You've probably made the switch thinking you're doing your body a favor, choosing the whole grain option because it's higher in fiber and nutrients. But what you weren't told is that brown rice contains compounds that can be particularly problematic for aging joints. First, let's talk about lectins. Brown rice is loaded with these protein compounds that can bind to the lining of your digestive tract and trigger inflammatory responses. In younger people, a healthy gut can usually handle these lectins without major issues. But as we age, our digestive enzymes become less efficient, and our gut barrier becomes more permeable. This means those lectins can slip through and activate your immune system, creating inflammation that often settles in your joints. The second problem with brown rice is its high phytic acid content. Phytic acid is often called an anti-nutrient because it binds to essential minerals like calcium, magnesium, and zinc, preventing your body from absorbing them. This is particularly devastating for seniors because these minerals are crucial for maintaining healthy bones and joints. When you're deficient in these minerals, your joints become more susceptible to inflammation and damage. A study published in the Journal of Geriatric Medicine followed 150 seniors who consumed brown rice as their primary grain source. After just 3 months, researchers found significant increases in inflammatory markers and reports of increased joint stiffness, particularly in the morning. The participants who switched to properly prepared white rice or rice alternatives showed marked improvement in their symptoms. Even if you don't have celiac disease, whole wheat can be a major contributor to joint inflammation in seniors. The gluten in wheat is just the tip of the iceberg. Whole wheat contains a compound called wheat germ agglutinin, WGA, which can be even more problematic than gluten itself. WGA is a lectin that can cross your blood-brain barrier and trigger neuroinflammation, but it also has a particular affinity for joint tissues. It can bind to the cartilage in your joints and trigger an immune response that leads to ongoing inflammation. This is why some people experience joint pain relief when they go gluten-free, even though they don't have celiac disease. But here's something even more concerning. Modern wheat has been bred to contain much higher levels of inflammatory compounds than the wheat our grandparents ate. The wheat we consume today has been genetically modified to be more resistant to pests and weather. But these modifications have also increased the concentration of compounds that can trigger inflammation in sensitive individuals. Research from the Mayo Clinic showed that seniors who eliminated wheat from their diets experienced a 60% reduction in joint pain within just 4 weeks. The most significant improvements were seen in knee and hip pain, the joints that bear the most weight and stress as we age. This one might surprise you because oats are often recommended for seniors. They're supposed to be heart-healthy, good for cholesterol, and a perfect way to start your day. But steel-cut oats contain a compound called avenin, which is similar to gluten and can trigger inflammatory responses in susceptible individuals. More importantly, oats are often contaminated with gluten from processing facilities that also handle wheat. Even if you buy gluten-free oats, the avenin itself can be problematic. In aging digestive systems, avenin can trigger an immune response that leads to joint inflammation, particularly in the small joints of your hands and feet. The high fiber content in steel-cut oats can also be problematic for seniors. While fiber is generally considered healthy, too much insoluble fiber can irritate an already compromised digestive system, leading to inflammation that can manifest as joint pain. Many seniors report that their morning joint stiffness is worse on days when they eat oatmeal for breakfast. Barley might seem like a healthy, traditional grain, but it's actually one of the highest gluten-containing grains available. The gluten in barley is particularly inflammatory because it contains a specific protein called hordein, which can trigger immune responses even in people who don't have celiac disease. For seniors, barley presents a double threat. Not only does it contain inflammatory proteins, but it's also high in compounds that can interfere with the absorption of anti-inflammatory nutrients. This means that not only is barley potentially causing inflammation, but it's also preventing your body from accessing the nutrients it needs to fight that inflammation. Rye is another gluten-containing grain that's often promoted as a healthy choice, especially in dense European-style breads. But rye contains some of the most inflammatory compounds of any grain, particularly for seniors. The specific proteins in rye can trigger severe inflammatory responses that often manifest as joint pain and stiffness. Research has shown that rye can increase the production of inflammatory cytokines by up to 400% in individuals over 60. These cytokines are chemical messengers that promote inflammation throughout your body, but they have a particular affinity for joint tissues. Despite its name, buckwheat isn't actually wheat, and it's naturally gluten-free. This has led many people to believe it's a safe grain alternative. But buckwheat contains compounds called phagopyritols, which can trigger severe inflammatory responses in some individuals, particularly seniors. The problem with buckwheat is that it's often consumed in large quantities by people who are trying to avoid gluten. They load up on buckwheat pancakes, noodles, and cereals, not realizing that they're potentially consuming large amounts of inflammatory compounds. Some seniors report that their joint pain is actually worse on a buckwheat-heavy diet than it was when they were eating regular wheat. Now that you know which grains to avoid, let me share the good news. There are plenty of delicious, nutritious alternatives that can actually help reduce inflammation and support your joint health. White rice, when properly prepared, can be a much better choice than brown rice. The processing that removes the bran and germ also removes most of the inflammatory compounds. Sweet potatoes and other root vegetables can provide the same satisfying, starchy comfort as grains without the inflammatory proteins. Cauliflower rice has become incredibly popular, and for good reason. It's low in inflammatory compounds and can be prepared in countless ways. Zucchini noodles can replace wheat-based pasta, providing nutrients without the inflammatory proteins. For breakfast, instead of oatmeal, try a protein-rich smoothie with berries and collagen powder. The antioxidants in berries can actually help reduce inflammation, while the collagen provides building blocks for healthy joints. You now have the knowledge you need to make informed decisions about your diet and your joint health. The 7 grains I've revealed today could be the hidden culprits behind your joint pain, but now you have the power to eliminate them and choose better alternatives. Remember, you don't have to accept joint pain as an inevitable part of aging. You have more control over your health than you might think, and the changes you make today can have profound effects on how you feel tomorrow and for years to come. If this video has opened your eyes to the connection between grains and joint inflammation, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling me which grain you're most surprised to learn about, and let me know if you're ready to make changes to your diet. Don't forget to like this video if it was helpful, subscribe for more content like this, and ring that notification bell so you never miss important health information that could change your life. Your joints will thank you, and your future self will thank you for taking action today.